Is it the hair?
It's got to be. I will say this really quick. I do appreciate your fashion choices from one of your events to the next. I never quite know what you're going to be wearing.
Right, right. I don't know either. I feel like I kind of go with the flow and whatever finished laundry or sometimes I leave some of my stuff in the laundromat in some country and I feel like I can't wait to go back to wear them and it's like uh yeah and I think it's kind of part of the equation, the way you kind of express yourself. And I notice that you've got that yourself. So it's great to see that you notice that a lot of people don't notice those things. That it just I feel like it's okay, it's totally cool, but it's good to notice expressions.
So I'll tell you, I live in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
And the weather just got like hot. I mean, it went from 47 degrees in the morning to 90 degrees
Wow.
5 hours later.
Wow.
I thought, well, I got to get into the pool. And then that got me thinking, wait a minute, pool? I got to ask Toufii about the pools. I need more. So tell me what's going on. Explain to me the pool situation
Nice.
as it
Okay.
relates to hypercycle, the token, the nodes. Like, help me kind of clear that up.
I love that segue. So, in every um, evolution that we've noticed in our uh, society that we've explored, there's certain things that they have a lot of fluff, but then there's something that stays, that is actually really good. And I think that a lot of the crypto evolution is no exception, that it has a lot of great things. Some of the great things that it has is it enables folks to encapsulate some of the elements, so you don't have to put in your brain everything together at once. And one of those things is like if you have any assembly line, certain things that needs to be produced, those things they perhaps can be put in a certain pool. You understand the pool really well. You know the input, the output, and everything else. You know it works tomorrow. You don't really need to understand it anymore. Put it in the same RAM in your brain. So I truly feel that what we need to explain, if we don't uh, tell folks the outcome of it, they might feel that this resembles something that is not necessarily good, because everything can be used for good, for bad. Nuclear energy can be used for good, for bad. We know that too. And it's like, if I were to explain the nuclear energy and somebody's just seen the bad, they might say, oh my God, that might relate to the bad. So it's important to folks to understand what are the uh, outcomes for the whole thing, and then we can focus on this. So in a hypercycle, what we do, we enable computers to have their AI computation to collaborate with any AI computation at the modular level anywhere in the world. So that is unprecedented, because currently, if they were to do that, it will take a lot of time, and if it takes a lot of time, it's no longer needed, and a lot of cost that is more than what that module can afford. And and then if you look at the exponential results of this, it would get us to a point where we can have emergence of intelligence that we did not have before. One component can do something that is good at something, would subcontract another component, and we'll get something great. All right, so that is one reason for the existence of a hypercycle. The other reason, they can compete with each other at the modular level. Microsoft and Google, they don't have to macro compete. Perhaps a tiny little module in Google is better than the one in Microsoft. In that way, the totality of the intelligence that we're producing is a lot better. So hypercycle brings this to the world, and we're extremely excited and enthused to actually bring it together. And we feel like the more we have supporters, the more people they can outline whatever weakness that we have to kind of make it better, the more we appreciate it and we get there better. So what I'm going to cover today, Nick, is one component that folks put it in a pool, and we have so many different pools that are going to exist, but this one specifically is one of the beneficiaries every time you run AI computation. So let me share my screen quickly if you don't mind, and then I
Sure.
can, then people can visualize, okay? So if we were to look at the 5 beneficiaries first, I might repeat that when we do the second video, but it's okay, just bear with me. So 5 beneficiaries, you run AI computation, the facility, energy, and space, of course. You know, they need to be, if you don't have the space, you don't have the energy to consume, nothing runs. The AI royalties, if you don't have intelligent, you know, AI, if you don't, for folks that don't pay for the AI, you may not necessarily get the best AI. If developers, they really need to continue to get paid to kind of build more and more AI. And then there are a lot of AI developers across the globe. And as you know, one of our partners, they have a phenomenal marketplace for AI, and they put it open source, which means that provides a lot of marketplaces for AI developers to you know, dive in. Any AI developer, they can find a way to actually plug their AI, and it will make them money. Great. Hardware owners, if you buy a hardware, you come and say like, Toufii, I want to install this hardware. You know that that hardware has a 5-year, like the half-life of it. You want that hardware to make money, not just like pay back for its cost. So you want to make sure, or if you partake in some hardware, or you know, one way or another, it needs to make money. And of course, the software owners. Hypercycle is a software company. We sell software. We sold a lot of software before even we released, and whoever bought the software, they need to be benefiting. Now, there is one other component that people from they are in the crypto space, that's all they kind of see, which is the tokens. But that token is so necessary for the machine to use it when it talks to another machine. Why? Well, it turns out that those machines there are created at a time that this planet is governed by Homo sapiens. Those Homo sapiens, they value things that they're called money. And if the machines is exchanging value with another machine without having the thing that those that govern this planet refer to it as money, then it would be more like monopoly money. Nobody really cares about that, and it's moot. If one machine can tell the other machine, can you do work for me, I'll pay you later, then there's a lot of attacks and may not pay later. If one machine can, you know, tell a lot of machines, hey, can you do work for me? That's more like a DDoS attack. You know, similarly, if that one machine is going to do the work, and when it's actually finished doing the work, wants to make sure that it gets paid. Wants to make sure that it's like, as soon as they finish work, I get paid. So that's that component. We bring it from Toda IP. I am the author of Toda IP, as you know. I was invited initially to be partake in this project, and I said I want to lead it, and that's why I'm the CEO of this company.
And Toufii, really quickly about Toda IP, because this is what sits underneath everything.
Right.
If you were to explain to like my 86-year-old grandmother, what is Toda IP? How would you explain that for regular humans?
Toda IP, for the technology, the 86-year-old, I would ask a question, do you know like video chat, for example, or do you know certain exchange one way or another? And if the answer is yes, I would say, okay, well, when you run the video on both sides and people, they can see each other, there are network packets that they're traveling almost at the speed of light, and that's why you cannot see the person live. Though, how many of those network packets? Millions of them per second. Each and every one is about 64 kilobytes and go. Great. So those packets, they're capable of sending information. But if they're able to send information and you say that those information, they have some value, the sender could reuse this information sent to someone else, right? It's copy, right? So for the longest time in the technological world, what we have used to avoid the capability for somebody to make a copy of this and send it to many people, which is called double spend. we use intermediaries. And any 86-year-old, those intermediaries, they're called banks. And through their electronic payment system, they sit in the middle, and you say like, pay Toufii this much, and then that one would know that if you said pay Toufii this much, then if you had, let's say you're paying $1, you had 10 minus 1, it's 9, and then you no longer can spend that 1 somewhere else, okay? Now, fast forward, folks, they felt bringing ledger-based blockchain can substitute the bank, but although initially it was intended to eliminate that dependency, but currently it just substitutes. So anyone from the technological world that they despise blockchain, they actually despise it for that reason, because the folks are claiming it is peer-to-peer, but then there's like peer to ledger to peer. But that doesn't mean that like the game is over. We want to deliver on the promises of having peer-to-peer on the communication layer without having to depend on that third party. How about inside those packets, there's sufficient cryptographic proofs that if I were to take one of mine and give it to you, I no longer can spend it, and you can spend it from that point onwards, without having to depend on any third party whatsoever, with the exception of one thing that is global. One thing that is global, and that is extremely important for people to pay attention to. It is about 32 characters at every 15 seconds that happens on every single machine appended. Why is that so necessary? It turns out in about 32 characters, you can have 2 to the power 256 different combination, which is unlikely for any one of them to be equal to another one. So you can encode almost anything that, not almost, actually every single thing that happens at this time, and that they can ripple all the way to that 32 characters. It's extremely important that the receiver checks that this transaction that was sent impacted those 32 characters. And so long as every single machine has those same 32 characters, you know as a receiver that if in 6 months you want to respend that thing that you have received, you're able to tell everybody anywhere, do you have those 32 characters chained up? And they say yes. Can you look the one from 6 months ago? Yes. Look at that. I'm going to show you one thing, that bunch of numbers that I could not have, there's no way I could have manufactured them, that they actually, inside those numbers, they have the proof that I own this thing, but in the same time, they're inside your machine. They contributed to the creation of this thing inside your machine from the 6 months ago. And you can't fake that, I cannot fake that, and you know for sure that you can prove that you own it, and if you were to send it, you can prove that you can no longer send it to anyone else. Effectively, that is the communication layer of Toda IP, what it brought into the equation. There are several different implementations. Toda brought this, and then there's Toda IP, there's Toda file, there's several different protocols that they were generated from that protocol and implementations. But that's what I'm talking about is precisely Toda IP. There's something else called Toda file that doesn't have those 15 seconds, but it has some upside and some downside in this equation because it doesn't have that heartbeat. So what is it called, that thing that is 32 characters, if folks are curious? I know that you said if it's like an 86 years old, there are a lot of 86 years old, they know Merkle trees and hash functions, cryptographic hash functions. Effectively, imagine, what is a cryptographic hash function? Maybe, may I? Explain?
Yeah, please. I think a lot of people have heard these terms, but they don't really know where they all fit in.
A cryptographic hash function is a program that exists on almost every device that you can buy from anywhere. And that program is capable of taking the data that you put in it, such as a picture, such as a statement, a word, whatever you give it, it crunches the data and it gives you an output of always equal to 32 characters. Even if you give it like billions of characters, it gives you an output of 32 characters. Now, in the input, if you change any tiny little things, you get a completely different 32 characters. But anyone who runs this function with the same data, they get the exact same 32 characters. Okay? So since you have the program on your computer, I have it. If I have a picture and I run it through this, and I give you the 32 characters, at any time in the future, I can prove to you that I have the picture, but no one else can do that but me. I can tell you, I have the picture, here's the 32 characters. You keep the 32 characters, and at some point in the future, I can show you that I have the picture that generated those 32 characters. So that is the cryptographic hash function. Now, if you have a cryptographic hash function, and what happens if you put it next to another cryptographic hash function? And together, there's something called concat, and you hash them again to generate another cryptographic hash function. So now the proof, if I had a picture in this one and you had a word, together, we put them, and then there's only 132 characters that has the proof for both, for you and me. Great. Now what happens if we take that again and do it for other two, right? And then you get 132 characters that has the proof for someone else who did the transaction and they hashed it, someone else who did the video and they hashed it, and they have all of them, they have the proof with only 32 characters, 32 characters. So with that method, like say 1 is 2, 2 is 4, 8, and so forth. If you want a billion, how many levels? Only 30. If you go 30 levels, you get to a billion. If you want a trillion, 40 levels. So imagine there's 40 trillion transactions in the world. How long does it take to a computer to navigate 40? Fractions of a second. Okay? So that proof is instantaneous that you can give to anybody. The construct of this.
And that big structure, or is that what, when people refer to like a Merkle tree, is that what they're referring to?
That is a Merkle tree. Now, any computer scientist, they know how to build a Merkle tree on a single computer. Building it on a distributed computer, some folks, they know how to do it. Building it on a distributed computer in a fully decentralized setting, we bring it to the world, to the IP. Okay? So then effectively, that's one of the innovations that we had to do, along with many other innovations, where it can deterministically get to those 32 characters that every single device will have no doubt that everybody got to the same 32 characters, and you append and append and append.
So that provable integrity anywhere in that tree in a totally distributed system.
In distributed system, in a fully decentralized setting, not just distributed, because distributed is great, but in a fully decentralized setting, meaning that you don't have to trust any of the parties anywhere.
So these are all trustless transactions, completely disintermediated.
100%. Yeah. And when I say 100%, mathematically, there is nothing that really gets 100%, 99.9999999%, but practically it is 100%. So you want to get that practical deterministic results in order to have a functioning, functioning society when it comes to this kind of stuff. So that's basically what the cryptography is bringing to the world, is those capability to eliminate a lot of the friction. And when we say peer-to-peer, the intent of peer-to-peer is just not because we don't like businesses to be in the middle. It's quite the opposite. It's actually, we don't want to depend on those businesses. Doesn't mean that they should not exist. We all like those services, but not having to depend on them, we end up gaining a lot of efficiencies. And when you gain a lot of efficiencies, let me give you an example for somebody who's 86 years old. If you look back at the snail mail, where you depended on the mailman to deliver the letter from New York to, let's say, Seoul, okay, in Korea. It takes time and it costs money. And it's not possible to send a letter and receive the response back and forth 50 times per day. It's not. Because it takes a lot of time, it's not possible. Now, because it costs a lot of money, you're not going to have like millions and millions of like letters, whatnot. Now, when somebody comes in and says like, hey, look, I was able to send 64 characters. sorry, 64 kilobyte. Okay, from here into a soul, or even 64 characters, you know, almost at the speed of light. So then the other person would say like, well, if you can send one, can you send two? Can you send four? Can you send 8? Can you send thousands of them? And the answer is yes. I'm like, okay, so that letter that you're going to send, can you actually put it in those and send it? And the answer is yes. So then you see the emergence from one tiny little thing that, oh, you can send 64 characters. It's not only about 64 characters, what you can do with as a result of, you can take this thing and start putting more and more things into it. And the next thing, you know, you have like, you know, email, you have internet, you have all kind of stuff. But to explain what the initial thing is just like we're able to send characters almost at the speed of light from one big machine to one big machine, and then you can send more and so on and so forth. So effectively here, what we're bringing in inside those packets, the innovation here is that they have the cryptographic proofs of who owned this thing at the time that it was received, and getting to finality in about, you could get finality in about 100 milliseconds, sometimes 50, sometimes depends where the other object. The bottleneck is the network, always. But if you're able to have a computer subcontract another computer, here, not a human, in 100 milliseconds and receive results that you're asking for, how about now you ask, can this computer subcontract 3,000? And if the answer is yes, what about those other computers? Can they subcontract 3,000? And each and every one of them? Great. So in 1 second, can you have like, you know, 3,000 to the power 10 basically effectively? And the answer is yes. And it's like, what? That's amazing, right? So you can basically have almost all the computers in the world to give you to all work together in 1 second and provide results using this method. And that's what we're hoping that hypercycle will contribute to society, that we enable the innovations at the end of the day. And this is like our long-term vision, that we want to add this piece of the puzzle, which people refer to us as like the synapses of the global brain, where it doesn't have to be one single company or one single entity that get to the AGI of the world. Perhaps the entire world together, we can get to a much better, much more resilient AGI. So that's the grand vision of what we're trying to accomplish here. But one step at a time. Right now, what we're focused on is getting a lot of the AIs to start benefiting from this system and from the efficiency of the system, so they can run computation that is much more efficient and secure and confidential and so on and so forth. So then the company is resilient, can make money, and can continue to grow to build on that grand vision.
So then that is what sits underneath these kind of guarantees that are made possible by the tokens.
Correct. So if one machine wants to contract another machine and it does not have an HYPC token in it, currently there is no AI scientist that can tell you that it's possible. It's still something that is not possible. And that's the piece that will make it possible. So you don't have to depend on a third party. You just send it. The proof, what happens is that what you're actually sending is like saying, I'm sending you this penny. You cannot spend it until you have the proof that you've done the work that I need. And as soon as you've done the proof, it's already spendable by you, because whoever is going to look at it, they can see that you've provided that proof, which is basically the actual hash of that work is put inside there, and then you can just like prove to them that you've done the work, and therefore you can spend it, and so on and so forth.
The proof is in the token.
It's inside that file, inside the token, which we put it inside the TCP. So it's not sitting on any ledger anywhere.
So this is a token. This is the kind of most obvious utility, like commodity token of all the arguments that are made. This is very clearly a utility.
100% utility, not 99.9. Because I've seen a lot of projects where they say, well, in order to use our system, you must have a token to get to the movie theater. It's by consensus. Okay, that's great. That works. They say that is the utility. This one, it's by construct, not by consensus, which is means that it can, like consensus is here, construct is there. So basically, it's like it cannot function. It's not like we can find a different way to get to the movie theater. You know, this is saying that that's if you don't transmit that token and put the actual payment in it, the other party is not going to do the work. So it's not even possible. So that's why the utility is so strong from that perspective. Now, of course, we added an additional utility, which is the identity. In that one, somebody can argue, can't you find a different way for identity? Of course you can, but we do have an explainer, an argument of why we've chosen that same DNA for the identity, which I will explain in a subsequent video if you like. But I think both of those utilities, they give a value to this HYPC that it's seen to have value between Homo sapiens, and that's why those machines, they want to use them to communicate between each other. And that's why if somebody has those HYPC and they want to give it to the machine, that somebody is a beneficiary from this entire equation, because that somebody paid money for them.
So okay, so that's a good place for us to go. So now let's take the perspective of the HYPC token holder and explain to me where the pools fit in.
Okay, so let's say I am a token holder that I believe that those machines gonna need my token or whatnot, and I can take them and go plug them in a machine and make the function. Okay, great. That means I have to find the machine. Okay, I have to find this guy here, and I have to find the software. I have to find the software owner. I have to find the hardware. I have to find the AI, and I have to find the actual facility, and so on and so forth. But luckily, we live in a society that you don't have to build all the components of the car. You just go to the dealer and then they've got it all done. If you want to partake in building the car, you can just build perhaps a stereo system or whatnot. Now, what happens if you are providing raw metal to the car factory or facility or whatnot? You partake in the win that they have, they generate. And it's no different here. You have something that those machines need. They either have to buy it from you. If they don't have the capital to buy it from you, they can borrow it from you. It's like you have a piece of land, somebody want to use it as a parking lot. A lot of people in the crypto space, they know of something called staking. This is not staking. The staking by design, it's built in a way that you stake your token, you could lose them. Here, it's like more like an actual parking lot. You're not gonna lose that. Staking has that risk. This one does not have that risk. So you can put it in the machine. If the entire machine doesn't perform whatnot, you can take it back. And how do you do this mechanism, Nick? Do you go and find all of the machines, or maybe there are some interested parties that they're saying we'll do all that work, and we can either buy your token or we can borrow it. Now, if they want to borrow it, they may want to give you an incentive. Whatever incentive that they give you, if it's attractive enough, you might give it to them. So far, our discussion with some of those guys, they call themselves pools, right? Why they call pools? Because if I have 524,000 tokens, but the machines that somebody's talking to, they need 5 million, where are they going to go and talk to 10 of me? The pool can go and aggregate those and give it to them.
So as a token holder, I've got my 1,024 tokens. I could go sell them, or I could go park them in a pool.
Right.
That pool would utilize those tokens to function, to have a node functioning.
Correct.
And they're going to pay me, and they're going to pay me a return. The
ultimate goal, people, they can take down to the 1,024 and plug it directly into the machine. Right now, what's actually being constructed is 524,000 at a time, and we can cover that later, because right now we're dealing with big machines that they can handle 512 nodes or whatnot. So the ultimate goal, which we've announced to everybody 18 months from our closing of private, we will have reached our ultimate goal, because so far we're looking from technology development, we'll finish it in 9 months, and there's like all the testing and audit and audit and audit. We truly think that 18 months, that ultimate goal can be achieved, which means that anybody anywhere can download that software and run it on any machine, and therefore the 1024 would then be applicable for a single node. Single node is not available today. Although if you put a gun in my head and say activate single node, I do it, but it is economically it's not feasible for somebody to manually actually go and do it in the time and so on and so forth. But if folks are putting 524,000 HYPC in one big one that has 512 nodes, it makes sense, the time that they spend into doing, because there's a lot of currently there's a lot of manual work. Why did we choose this method, and why didn't we wait 18 months to actually just go and release one shot? I've been a software developer all my life. I've built a lot of stuff that they succeeded, a lot of stuff that they fail, and I can tell you one thing that always succeeds is you work closely with your customer, and you always iterate and iterate and iterate. You may not necessarily get to that ultimate goal all the time, but you always get to success because you're iterating from something to something better, something to something better. So we're using that methodology, which is also good for the company because it generates shitloads of money in revenue. And people, they like to see companies that they are generating revenue as opposed to dependent on some other thing, you know, like all the time. It's good that it has some revenue to also inject capital, and that's what we did. And then the way we did this via a variety of methods. So now, if we were to go back to somebody who owns that HYPC token, they have 524,000, rather than them going and having to find all of those themselves, which they can still do, absolutely can still do. There is a lot of folks that they're building pools, and when they showed me those, we've even included them in the tokenomics to show as an example of how they look like. And the very first pool that it's actually being audited as we speak, and it's like going live soon, it's basically the way it looks. It has 2 options. Of course, people, they can create all kind of pools and compete with it too. This is not us. This is a huge reminder. This is not Hypercycle that is providing the pool. This is a lot of engineers and a lot of people. You're going to find lots of pools that are going to come and offer you this. The one thing that you may want to look at is, has it been audited? Look at the audit report. Here, the audit report is going to say, you do not lose your token. That's a deterministic statement, meaning that if you put your token with this pool here promises that every 2 weeks it sends you payment. Every month, on average, about 34,000. Let's say you put these tokens, okay? This is per month it's paying. The bi-weekly, it hasn't been calculated, but approximately half of that. The moment this 36 months is over, you take back your tokens. Whatever what you've done with the money, you can do whatever you want. That's your money. Your tokens at that point, so if we were to follow this trajectory, might be worth a lot more, might be worth a lot less. We don't know what the future holds. We work on it really hard to get it to that point, but you know, we don't necessarily guarantee the future. We work towards that, and hopefully we can all get there. But it would be nice if we get there where people, they're actually collecting monthly and bi-weekly. Now, that's great. So what happens?
So wait, let me just interject really quickly. So I have my tokens, whatever amount I have. Let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, I say I'm going to get some Hypercycle tokens. I want to get residual income. I buy X amount of tokens. I then go, okay, cool. 18-month pools exist, and they're paying 7%. That's an annualized rate returned in biweekly payments. Like every couple of weeks, I get a payment. That's kind of cool. And I can choose to get paid in USDC, or I can also get paid in Hypercycle tokens if I want.
Correct. The actual thing that I keep emphasizing on, that the pools themselves, they're not Hypercycle.
Right.
They exist and they will always exist. Almost any developer create a lot of pools and they make them available for people. What we caution folks is that to look at the actual audit report and make sure that this is not staking, which means no matter what happens, you're getting your tokens back. Okay. So one method to get your token back, you wait here in this example 36 months, in this example it's 18 months, okay? There might be some other pools that might give you 9 months. I don't know. So far, these pools that I've been privy to, they provide those two options. If this one, let's say, after 2 weeks, they don't pay you, what happens? The smart contract must make it crystal clear that you can go press one button, take your tokens back. Okay, so if you do get paid as per the contract, they keep it. If not, then you take it back. Now, of course.
So if they don't, right. So if they don't meet their obligations, you can exit.
Right, correct.
That's nice.
Right. Now, of course, somebody needs to dig deeper and say like, okay, I need to know how the pool makes money. Otherwise, I'm not giving the pool. And that would be very, very good question for people to ask and kind of like get deep and see. It's like, okay, is it actually, how is it making money? Well, when we look back into the beneficiaries, and there are 5 beneficiaries, and when one of our clients did the math to compare if they were to provide exactly the same service as like, Microsoft Azure, exactly same hardware, same software, whatnot, and they came to conclusion they're able to do it for about 97% cheaper. So there's a huge delta that they could actually sell and make money on. So let's say they end up doing, let's say, 90% cheaper or 80% cheaper, and they extend even Microsoft Azure. I feel like we're super proud to announce to the world that we not only built a system that can enhance every single blockchain, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and whatnot, but we can also enhance centralized systems such as Microsoft Azure and others. Okay, so if those guys, they're building those bridges and they figure out that this computation is available, there's like amazing hardware, very good security and whatnot, and they channel this out, and then they get like, let's say, 80% discount. The provider, they're still making about like 5-6x on their, so that's a huge margin, like you're spending let's say 3 cents, you make 20 cents. It's not bad. So the 17 cent every time you spend 3 cents on electricity and maintenance and all of this stuff, there's a lot of money that is actually coming and being distributed to all of these parties. Okay, so the party that it's HYPC that's in this situation would be the pool owner. They receive that chunk of money. They if anybody looks deeply and then they find that like, holy shit, why am I giving these guys 19? They're making 18. Just remember that then you're gonna end up doing the work. Most people don't have the time and expertise and so on and so forth. So, but when you realize that they're actually doing the work to receive this much and they're paying like half of what they receive, you should be happy. That means they're sustainable business.
Right.
If they're only receiving tiny little bit money, like let's say if they're only getting barely, like that's barely break even, that means like the first storm is gonna happen, you gotta get your tokens back because they're gonna be able to pay you. So it's good to have a true win-win, and otherwise we end up with a Moloch situation, and we don't want that.
Right. So I think, so to kind of summarize all this, the pools are available so that from day one, people that purchase the tokens are going to have a place to put them when they want to essentially lend those tokens to somebody that will use those tokens in this compute system to generate revenue. And part of that revenue goes back to the token holder. If the token holder doesn't get the revenue that they are guaranteed or promised by that pool at any point along the path of either 18 months or 36 months or whatever that pool might say is the stated time, bang, their tokens unlock, they get them right back. They can go find another pool.
Right. And just to make it a little bit more accurate, those are the vested tokens that they are in the market that people can go and plug them into pools.
Okay.
There is something that we're working on, which would be pleasant surprise when it comes out. So I'll save it until then for folks that they don't have their tokens vested, of how they can perhaps power machine. And the reason why I'm saying this, Nick, here is because when here we're always dealing with like a bottleneck. Which one is the bottleneck? Where if say here, there. So if this is like becomes like we're oversaturated with this and we don't have enough of this, then what do? Then maybe if you're an HYPC owner, you'd be like HYPC holder, maybe instead of waiting until the fully vested, maybe you don't necessarily get like some method or somehow we can perhaps enable it. So let me not talk so much about this. That can come in the future. But effectively, when you look here, like for example, circulating supply 371 million, right? So what if in this month there's a demand for like 1 billion? What do? You know, maybe the folks that they can instead of having acceleration and thing, maybe something can be done. Then everybody can win. So let's see how things go. The better we do, the better it is for all those participants and all the holders. And truly, the way we're building it, it's better for the entire ecosystem of AI and crypto. And it's just it's a true win-win. So
I'm looking forward to the pools.
Thanks, Nick. Me too. And I'm looking forward to see what innovations people they come up with. And it would be nice to kind of see all of those they're addressing some pools somehow, because it would make life a lot easier at the end of the day. And again, some people might think that this is complex. I remind them, look at your phone. You told me this is not complex. This is, you know how many of these? This is not 5. This is about 3,000 of tiny little things. You put them together to build this thing. So yeah, it's behind the scenes. Things are very complex. And the facade with hypercycle, we make it extremely simple. It's like, oh, it's like the synapses of global brain. That's it. Simple. But you know, behind the scenes, it's a lot more complex.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Now I have a firmer grasp, and I think people will too, of, you know, what their day one strategy, because in life, people do things when they're presented with a challenge, they say, can I do it? What's in it for me?
Right.
So this is a system, you know, can you participate? Yes. From day one. Yes. What's in it for you? Residual income.
Right. Yeah.
My questions are answered there.
Right. And the more you're going to see pools, and the more, in fact, I mean, if people, they want to do the work themselves, they probably end up with more money. But if they don't know what they're doing, chances are they want to let someone else do it. Like they need to have like all the expertise. So, but if they do have the expertise, we actually encourage folks like, yeah, go for it. You know, this is great. You know, it's fun.
Toufii, who would be the person that would be perfect? So for instance, like a server admin, like who would be a good person to kind of run one of these systems end to end? Who would be the ideal or the most capable?
I think sysadmins, HPC sysadmins, I would say, like high performance computing sysadmins, because there's certain things in at this point, when we get to the actual ultimate goal, I want my grandma and your grandma and everyone to be able to actually run it. The ultimate goal is actually we're building things and making it so simple that people can even like control this thing from their device while they have like maybe 500 servers running somewhere else. But from now until then, it requires people with like a lot of sophisticated expertise in like network admin, sysadmin, or, you know, operating system, all kind of stuff. Like even like most of the controls are like command controls. There's not lots of you know, that's from that perspective. But at the same time, they also need to have some knowledge of economics and all of these things, because otherwise they would overload one server with lots of like, let's say, tokens, when it should be like properly like distributed and all of these things. Like you don't want to, you need to be very, very efficient every step of the way.
And you guys you'll be working with these teams, won't you? I mean, you guys are going to be working with these teams as this approaches that end goal of everybody being able to participate. But on the way there, you're going to be working with the teams.
Correct. And at some point I thought that the folks that they have those expertise, as we've asked, who would they be? And I thought that maybe this can empower as an added business the folks that they do mining. And it turns out to be true, but at the same time, some folks, they don't necessarily see the opportunity as an opportunity. Somebody else whispers in the ears, oh, this is a threat. Well, of course, if someone wants to sell you some other machines that do something else, they don't want you to go and spend
Right.
your AI computation machines, because those are two different machines, right? So we try to remain agnostic. We're here to add value to anybody who wants to play, and hopefully we can find the unfair advantage of folks and try to leverage it and try to focus on it so they can do better what they do. Like if somebody is really good at something, and maybe they need to utilize that a little bit more, you know. So, and we welcome a lot of ideas and a lot of methods that people might think of. Just you know, people can reach out to us through so many different channels. It's just if we can't answer right away, just because we're extremely busy, but we will not ignore any real you know, requests. Of course, there's a lot of like spams and all that. So if we are delayed or whatnot, we always apologize in advance and all of these things. You know how it goes, but being open is so important, because we need to make sure that this is the intelligence of all of us Homo sapiens, that we're bringing something that can be the intelligence for all of us and can be secure and so on and so forth. So yeah, the more, like, for example, people can build pools, like we just said, so many different pools competing and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's what we're doing, Nick, and super excited. And hopefully we'll next session we'll cover a little bit more on this second aspect, what happens when they take those and plug them to machines, and we keep going through the whole assembly.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Take care.
Thanks, Toufii.